Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of my show Unfiltered with Khalid, where I intend to interview hope makers around the globe, those that express the authentic, genuine, and vulnerable side of human beings. And that's an attempt to set aside those social filters and masks we tend to put on, and rather to explore the beauty of being wholesome individuals, as well as to embrace our vulnerability. Because vulnerability is power, and that's what makes us human beings. So throughout every episode, I'm going to interview people from different backgrounds with different stories, which all come under the umbrella of giving hope, giving inspiration, and teaching us what it takes to become and change maker in this world. And honestly, I'm more than honored and proud to start this journey of mine with someone who, when I first read her story, I was touched. And I was touched for many reasons, mainly for her perseverance, for her resilience, and for her mentality. Because everything she does, she connects it back to her faith and devotion. And I believe that that's the mentality we should all have, where regardless how much we're bombarded with obstacles and hardships, we still find the right path at the end of the day. And that's exactly what she does today. She is a doctor, she's a millennial coach, and she's an international motivational speaker. Without further ado, please welcome with me Dr. Nothabo.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you
I'm
for
good.
being with
Uh,
us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's quite a pleasure, because as I mentioned earlier, you inspire me on a personal level because your mentality in life and how you quite absorb all the positivity that comes through your way. It's truly eye-opening for me, and I'm sure for everyone else. So I wanted to start off by saying, who is Nothabo?
Wow. Well, first of all, I'll start off by sharing with everybody the meaning behind my names. Nothabo means mother, teacher of joy or happiness. And my second name is Guguletu, which means our precious gift. Who is Nothabo? Nothabo is hope, she's grace, she's love, she's purpose. She is one who's been called to use her voice and her story to empower humanity, to inspire people, to raise the vibration of the earth for such a time. But most importantly, to help humanity to connect with the thread of purpose within themselves. Because this is one thing that I know for sure, that each and every one of us is called to do something that is unique and peculiar to them. The question then becomes, what is your gift? What is your talent? What is that thing that God has called you to do?
Wow, very inspiring to be exact. Because because personally, knowing that your journey in life and how it was filled with obstacles that could demotivate any person, but for you, you took all of this pain in your life and you transformed it into something beautiful, a product. Dr. Nothabo, the one who was with us today. So I wanted to talk about your early childhood. How was your days in your homeland, Zimbabwe? What was your upbringing like, and your relationship with your siblings?
Right. I was born and raised in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. And I come from a family of four, my mother, my dad, my brother, and myself. And so it was only just the two of us, myself and my brother. And we have always had a strong bond. But I think our relationship grew stronger after the death of my mother, because my dad was actually in Canada at the time. So I would say that that awareness of the fact that it was just my brother and myself allowed us um, to come stronger. And we also had this mentality that it was us against the world. So I would say that I have a very strong bond and unique bond with my brother. We've always had each other's back. We look out for each other at all times. He's literally my partner in crime.
Exactly. I am sure that you have those core memories that come along with you wherever you go. You just remember those days when you had before moving to Canada. And honestly, when I was looking into your journey, I kept on questioning. uh, Out of all the things you could have done at that desperate moment of losing your mother, that wave of overwhelming emotions that I'm sure have conquered you, pain, misery, grief, loss, confusion, and all of that. Why give a promise of becoming a doctor? Why mention something so specific? Out of all the things you could have said, why give that promise? Do you think it was God's way of communicating with you, or it was your purpose early from the beginning?
Wow, it was a combination of a lot of things, some of which you already mentioned, Khaled. My mother was a teacher by profession, so ever since I was a young girl, she instilled in me the value of an education. I would say she instilled the value of an education in each and every child that crossed her path. So, you know, I come from a home where education was the foundation, and my mother's dream for me, for my life, was that I would one day become a medical doctor. And from my father's side of the family, um, my dad's younger brother was a medical doctor before he passed away. And so, you know, becoming a medical doctor was more of a pledge to my mother, a promise to her to say that though you are not here, I'll continue on and make something great of my life. I will do that which you wanted me to become. I would say, you know, just looking at her lying down in her coffin, it became the most natural thing or promise for me to make to my mother, considering the circumstances. And like I said, it was just a pledge to her to say that I'll continue on and make something great of my life. And so, you know, that's how I made a promise. But I would say in a grander sense, it was the voice of God speaking in and through me in that moment of pain, in that moment of travel, because that promise to my mother has served as a guiding light in my journey, taking me on a path that I didn't imagine for myself, not only allowing me the opportunity to fulfill the promise I made to my mother, all my lifelong dream of becoming a doctor, but also setting me on a spiritual path that has allowed me to unravel the deepest parts of me, and bringing me to a place where I can use my higher calling of using my voice and my story to give people hope.
Definitely, I'm sure that losing, your role model, your ray of light, your source of tenderness and comfort at such a green age, it must have been excruciatingly painful and hard. Especially not only because you were losing such a prominent figure in your life, but also it came simultaneously with you just being 14 years old, and this certain age, you're leaving childhood and you're diving into teenagehood and early adolescence. And this is such a sensitive age where you're filled with perplexity, confusion, you don't know what you want in life. And so, how are you able to cope with all of this all at once?
You know, Khaled, it's, as you ask me that question, you're forcing me to dig deeper, and to go back to that moment when everything happened in terms of the death of my mother. I was actually in boarding school at the time, and I remember my uncle came to pick me up from school and then returned me back to boarding school after the death of my mother. And when he dropped me off at school, the first office that I went to was the headmaster's office, which was the school principal at the time. And his first words to me were, "I know your mother passed away. I had the news. But my daughter, my child, life must continue on." And that's all he said. So, and really what that meant at that time was that go back to class. Life must continue on. And immediately, he did not even give me the chance and opportunity to mourn or to cry or to have a pity party for myself. I went back to class. So I would say I am thankful for the people that were set in my path at that challenging time, who were able to create that soft space of bringing me to reality, which was that life must continue on. And the most painful thing about life is that life does not give you the chance and opportunity to mourn or to cry. The reality is life goes on. So my circumstances forced me to heal while I was going to school, to heal while I was trying to figure out my path. And I have since learned that usually our pain and joy, they run parallel to each other. Life cannot exist without any of the two. So we need to dig deeper at all times, even when trouble comes, we need to dig deeper and ask ourselves, what is this here to teach me? What am I learning through this process? What is being revealed to me? What am I being propelled to? Because I will tell you this, Khalid, your pain is your greatest teacher. Your pain is your greatest gift. Nothing under the sun just happens. Your pain is the vehicle through which you come to know who you are. And, from just following some of the world's greatest world changers, people like Oprah Winfrey, they will always attest to the same thing, that it is through the gift of our pain and suffering that we awaken to a deeper calling that has always been within ourselves. But what is that thing that shakes us up to recognize what that calling is, to recognize what that purpose is? It's pain and it's suffering. So when it comes into our lives, we should dine in with it, welcome it, learn from it, and allow it to teach us what it's supposed to teach us, and allow it to reveal to us who we are in God consciousness. That's what I would say.
Definitely, 100%. In life you will always have a share of both joy and struggles, because struggles, they are lessons in the chapter of life. You're gonna in the book of life, and you're gonna go through different chapters. Some are going to be amazingly happy, and some other won't be. So we should always take step by step. And I was talking about this specific moment of your life because I know that it's an extraordinary amount of courage for someone to be able to move from this stage in life and prosper into a successful person like you. And that's why I ensure to talk about this moment, because the moment of you approaching your mother's coffin, what made you want to see her, especially with something that requires an immense amount of courage and strength, and not only that, but inner peace and comfort with yourself to be able to have the physical ability to say your last goodbyes. Can you collect that moment?
Right. In my culture, when somebody has passed away, everybody is given an opportunity and a chance to body view, to go and see the person who would have just passed away. So in this case, it was my mother. And the person who was sitting right close to me was my aunt, my mother's sister. Actually, it's my mother's half sister. She was the person who was holding my hand. So when that opportunity came, she looked at me and said, "Do you want to say your goodbyes to your mother?" And I said yes. And she held my hand, walked with me towards the coffin, and I was watching her lying down. I would say that was a God moment, because I didn't think about it, Khalid. It's just a voice that came on me, and I felt led to make that promise to her and said, "Mama, ngiletemba," which means, "Mama, I'm hopeful." And I said, "I will try by all means, and I'll strive to be a doctor." Now, as you can imagine, those words were rather too strong and powerful for a 14-year-old child to have been able to articulate. And so for me, I look back at that moment and I recognize that it was a force I call God, an energy that transcends my understanding, divine intelligence that has always been at work in my life, guiding me and leading me to a higher truth about who I am. Because those words, what I didn't recognize to at the time, was that the moment I spoke those words into the universe, I was releasing them into the world, but also I was giving the universe the power to co-create, to co-create that dream, that promise with me. And 2 years after making that promise, fortunately we migrated to Canada, and Canada was the land that provided that healthy space for me to unfold that path, for me to fulfill that dream, and for me to fulfill the promise that I made to my mother. So, when, thinking back to that moment when I was looking at my mother, that was a moment that was bigger than me. That was a God moment. That was God speaking in and through me as God, and allowing me to literally start creating and mapping out my path.
And do you think that you were able to overcome this challenge in your life because of the guidance and support you got from your surroundings, especially your father, because I know that he have had an immense role in transforming you into the person you are today and to further urge you to be the best possible version of yourself. Do you think you wouldn't have been able to make it if it was not for the constant support you got from everyone around you?
Right, most certainly. Actually, one of the things that I would love to share with everybody who's tuning in is that when we arrived in Canada, we lived in community housing, subjected to poverty. So this is a catchment area where you are exposed to drug dealers, sex workers, and teenagers who are dropped out of, high school and college. And, I think the gift about living in that catchment area is that there was a program called Pathways to Education. Pathways to Education was a charity organization which was meant to take care of kids who were coming from low income homes like myself. For me, Pathways to Education was my saving grace. That was the program that literally provided me with a mentor and a tutor and tickets to go to high school. And these are things that, considering my financial circumstances at the time, we couldn't have afforded a mentor, neither could we have afforded a tutor at the time. And so Pathways to Education literally lifted me from poverty and provided me with the tools and resources to make it out there in life. And then my father, who is my everything, my pillar. I always say this, before we come into being, we choose the parent, who is going to father us, who is going to mother us. And I always say, I chose the perfect one. Just a backstory of who my dad is. He was a school principal, headmaster back home in Zimbabwe, moved to Canada, had to survive off 2 jobs, menial paying jobs, so that way he could take care of me and my brother. But I think what is really beautiful and amazing about my dad is that he's a man who is filled with so much wisdom, so much light, so much guidance in him. And I think it comes with the territory of the fact that he was a school principal himself. So there is that leadership trait in him. And, despite the fact that he has all these positive attributes in him, where life experiences have built in him the wisdom needed to father his child like me or other kids in the community, he has this special way of striking a balance where he will give you and offer his support, his guidance, but still gives you the room to unfold your own path, to unfold your own individuality. So that way, you don't miss out on your destiny. So my dad is the kind of man who has given me that room to become everything that I am now. He doesn't dictate, he offers his guidance and support, but he gives me that healthy room and space for me to figure out who I am and to unravel that. That for me is the greatest gift that my father has given me. And so I am truly grateful for the man that he is, for his wisdom, for his consciousness that allows him to parent me in the way that he does. A young woman like me is expected in my culture to be married, but my dad is the kind of man who says there are no rules here. You do it your way, at your time, at your pace. Be true to who you are. And so I think you would agree with me that it takes a man with so much wisdom to be able to empower you in such a way that you dig deeper within yourself and stay true to who you are and unfold your own, path, despite what culture says, despite what society expects you to be. So he doesn't put you in your box. He allows you to be exactly who you want to be and how you want to be.
Exactly. I can only assume that everyone should take a piece of your father's wisdom and his open-mindedness and his I believe that your father is the way he is because he have had this long journey in life where he went through all of the things that we are going through right now. He have reached to that stage of self-acceptance. Accept yourself, accept your life as it is, accept the challenges that come with it. And that's what he poured in you. And you know what? That's what you're pouring in all of those children that you mentor. It's a continuous train of positivity, a continuous train of inspiring
Wow.
others.
Wow.
And I want to
You
talk
are a
about,
gift. Khalid, you are a gift. I could have not articulated it that way. So you're right. The seed didn't just start with me. I am just, extension of that which my ancestors are, of that which my father is. So, thank you so much for putting it that way.
because it's true, if you look into it, as you said, it takes an immense amount of wisdom for someone to finally acquire this type of mentality and ideology, because um, we will go through stages in our life, and you know what, in every stage we are going to pick something until we become the person we are today. And I wanted to talk about the whole process of moving from your homeland to Canada. You had I'm sure you have this fantasy of living in luxurious mansions or being immersed within the elite community, and in general, this picture perfect canvas in your mind. However, reality hits you like a train, and you find yourself, as you mentioned, living in community housing. So, how can you describe that experience in general?
Any child who is in Zimbabwe, and they get the call from their dad that they are moving to Canada, expects that they'll be moving into a mansion, a multi-million-dollar home, because that's what the media portrays. That's what you see. So, just like everybody else, that's what I expected. And to my shock and surprise, we get here. We're living in community housing, subjected to poverty, experiencing things that I never thought I would live to experience. And for me, that was shocking to my system. But I would say that despite living in that catchment area, I have to say this, Khalid, never once did I feel poor. And I would say that was also because of the love and the care that I received from my dad. I felt as though I was enough. I felt as though I could go out into the world and become whatever it is that I wanted to be, because of how my dad affirmed me as his daughter, because of how my dad validated my gifts and my talents. I always say my dad is my number one prophet, because he had this gift of being able to tap into who I am, even when I was younger. You might have not known how my destiny was going to unfold, but there was this awareness that he had, that I was a gifted child, that I was a child who was going to be able to go out into the world and make it. So that, having that vote of confidence from him, I never felt poor. I literally ran with what my dad would say to me about who I was. And that, brought me to a place where I believed in myself and I knew I was worthy. So I did live in a community that was subjected to poverty, but because of the wealth of wisdom and love that my dad gave us, I never felt poor in a materialistic way. I felt wealthy deep within inside of me. And I think that is the most important thing, honestly. I think it's a gift that if the world could give that to each and every child, we would produce amazing human beings who are able to validate themselves, not through material possessions, but kids who are able to look within themselves and to find hope within themselves and find love within themselves and find faith within themselves, because I know for sure those are the things that truly matter.
I'm very glad that you actually talked about this, because I believe that this topic in specifically is very crucial, but yet it's neglected by the public. And my question is, how do you think that circumstances such as these, living in a harsh community of harsh environment of community housing, and having this atmosphere around you, how do you think it can affect the child later on in their life, as well as its impact into molding their characters, knowing that not everyone would have such a blessing such as your father in their lives to further push them, because whether we like it or not, this atmosphere that we are grounded in, it's going to definitely reflect who we are later on in our adulthood. Because I always say that a child is like a sponge. He will definitely absorb whatever that he's surrounded with. So imagine absorbing all of those challenges in community housing. What type of person will it result in the future?
Right. And I think having grown up in that catchment area and also having been exposed to the kids in that catchment area and the kind of homes that they were coming from. Most of them were coming from homes where the parents were traumatized, or they were coming from single parent homes where even the single parent has been traumatized. So it becomes, and usually with trauma, everybody in the family is numb. And when you're numb, you're really not able to take yourself, or rather to remove yourself from that pit. You become stuck, you become numb. And I think a lot of kids in that catchment area, that was their reality. And they were on survival mode. They're exposed to prostitution, like I said earlier on, drug dealers, and teenagers who would have dropped out of school, out of college. And so that becomes their reality. That becomes the story that they hold true, you know. And once you hold on to such a negative story, it becomes hard for you to be able to transcend that thought, that reality, and become something more, or to reach your full potential, because your circumstances and your reality, what you're growing up being exposed to, says otherwise. So I would say that I experienced a lot of that. And a lot of kids, were traumatized for starters, but they ended up not being able to reach their full potential because of the environment that they were coming from. They didn't know any better. And some of them, unfortunately, due to systemic barriers as well, end up engaging in criminal activity. And the next thing they have a criminal record, and really truly at that point, what becomes of you? So it becomes an ongoing cycle of criminals in that catchment area. And survival of the fittest, you're fighting among yourselves instead of coming together as a community, working together towards one common goal, one common purpose. But that becomes impossible, especially for people who are coming from such neighborhoods, people who have been exposed to trauma, people who are still, operating in and through the space of pain. And so that's what I would say ends up becoming of people who find themselves in that catchment area, unfortunately.
Yes, the way I perceive it is that the child, when they grow, the child when he grows in this specific circumstance, they have this mentality. They develop this mentality of prey and predator. Will you become the prey in this scenario or this dilemma, or will you become the predator? And I believe that they translate those accumulating feelings and emotions into becoming that predator to fight the norms of life, the harsh conditions. And my question is, why? Why do you think they end up becoming products of injustice and poverty? Is it because they lack that hand of guidance that would guide them through the right path?
Sometimes it is because they lack that guidance, but you also have to recognize, Khalid, that sometimes even if you do have guidance, you don't necessarily have the right tools and resources to catapult you where you are to where you want to be, right? So here I'm talking about financial assistance to go to even school, to go to college, right? Not everybody has access to that. And for some kids, that's a birthright. They're born into well-to-do homes who can afford to take them to school. So it's not each and every child who has access to those kind of resources. And in this case, I'll also use my own personal story. I have had a lot of people who have been divinely positioned in my path to help me financially. I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for the hands, the gracious hands, the kind hands that have extended favor to me, that have helped me to cross over at different points in my journey. So I would say that it becomes hard to expect that a child who's living in that catchment area, despite the fact that they may have guidance, they still are likely to run into a stumbling block. which is the finances. So they may have the right guidance, but then who then is there to support them financially so that way they can fulfill that education, or whatever program it is that they enrolled in, right? And then for me specifically, I would say I received guidance from not only my dad, but also from the Pathways to Education charity organization that I was enrolled in. But also, I think I've always been in touch with God, with the source, the creator, a higher being that has always been guiding me ever since I was young. But that's not something that I can teach either. It's something that a human being, an individual has to tap into on their own. They have to unfold that. And maybe I could say also coming from a Christian background where my parents took us to church, kind of facilitated for that moral campus as well from when I was young. So it's really a, a challenging a challenging subject to speak on, considering that I'm fully aware of the circumstances surrounding those kids. And I know that being a byproduct of what a charity organization can do in the life of a child, I'm also fully aware of the gaps that exist as well within the context of that charity organization. It's not each and every child who's going to get a full ride scholarship through a charity organization. I was one of the recipients of a full ride scholarship through the organization. So it's, I'm now in this space where I'm constantly asking myself, how then can we better create systems that serve marginalized communities so that way we're not leaving anybody behind?
Beautifully said, Dr. Nothabo. I believe that people should stress more significance on education and its role in changing the community, because we always talk about the troubles and the problems that happen in life, but we forget the core issue, and that is education. Because education just not just gives you knowledge, it allows you to dive into this area of light, this area of knowing, of knowledge and wisdom. And I believe that if we all had equal chances of education, then we would definitely live in such a better world. And talking about the hand of guidance, be it Pathways to Education or your father, on a literal term, how were you, Nothabo, as a person, able to detach yourself from falling into the traps of that environment? What are the things that you did to sort of block the temptations to reach to you?
Wow, I've never thought about it from that angle, but I would say that I have both my parents to thank, considering my background, having grown up in a home where both parents were teachers, but also in a home where faith, was a driving force in our home. So I would say that instilled a sense of moral compass within me where I was able to discern right from wrong from ever since I was a young girl. And so, moving to Canada, already having made that promise to my mother and that promise, serving as a guiding light, I already had this deep level of awareness about who I am and what my trajectory was, that it was education inclined. So anything that didn't align with that, with my goals, with my dream of one day becoming a medical doctor, I quickly was able to dissociate myself from it. And also it just, I think, hanging around the right friends, the right company, and seeking out help even from teachers at school, if it is that I needed more assistance, reaching out, but also playing. I think the most important thing, especially for kids who are still in school, it's being able to identify the kids who are on the same path as you, kids who want to go to school, kids who want to empower themselves, kids who are education oriented. So, hanging around the right people, the right crowds. And I think that truly goes a long way because you become the company you keep, right? You absorb the energy from all those that are around you. And so it's very important that you align yourself with the right company. And that's exactly what I did. And even some of my friends that I met when I was in college, they're still my friends now, where they've literally become sisters and brothers. And even now, we support each other. As I'm unfolding my path, as they're also unfolding their path, we've created a healthy support system for each other, so that way we can lean on each other as we're unfolding the journey. So I think that is key. Who you surround yourself with, who you talk to on a daily basis, who you allow into your corner to feed into your spirit, to feed into your path, because that really truly matters. You know, who you surround yourself with truly matters.
Exactly, exactly. And you had this narrow vision in your mind. You had this concrete purpose. I want to become a doctor. I want to fulfill the promise I made to my mother years ago. And you know what? I'm going to accept everything that comes along my way. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get the highest grades. And at the end of the day, you saw the result of the seeds you planted throughout that time of your life. You were fortunate enough to be accepted into McMaster's medical program, and finally everything seemed to be at place. However, yet again, there was a turn in events. So tell me about that.
Right. Just a bit of a correction. I did, at McMaster, I did my undergraduate studies. I went to Windsor University School of Medicine for medicine. But, to answer your question, yes, when I started at McMaster University, I stumbled, I fell into depression at the time. I was dealing with so much, even from home, family circumstances, which were beyond me at the time, and lost my way. And I think it's something that happens to all of us, and then you find yourself depressed. And at the time, I think what truly helped me was the fact that my roommate was athletic, and so she really used to engage in a lot of sports activities, even around the campus at school. She kept me sane because she would invite me over to go, even though I did not even have the energy to attend any of that. I was just feeling low and down. I didn't even know how I was going to come out of that situation myself. And so depression, got the best of me. And when depression gets the best of you, what that means is that obviously your grades are going to suffer as well. And I underperformed, and got kicked out of my program at the time. I was in the pre-medicine program. And I'll never forget the day when I got the letter from McMaster University saying that you've been kicked out of the program. Really, what that means is you've underperformed. You are not smart enough. That's there's a polite way that they communicate, but that's what it means. And you can imagine, for me, Khalid, having been an academically gifted child ever since I was a young girl, that brought so much shame, you know. And in that moment, I also started playing victim of my story. But again, there was this hope in me that I could try again. So I reapplied into McMaster University, stating the factors why I had underperformed. And as grace would have it, God gave me a second chance and was reinstated into the program. And I think for me, that also serves as a reminder to each and everybody who is listening right now, that in life you get as many chances as you believe you deserve. If you are willing to try again, if you're willing to rise up to reach your potential, there is a gracious hand. There is a gracious hand that lifts you up, enables you, and helps you to cross over. That was true for me. And I'm not in any way different or more special than any other human being. I'm just a girl who was daring enough, who was bold enough to say, I haven't performed here, but what is the best way forward? And for me, the best way forward at that moment was to reapply into the university and make a plea, and my voice was heard. I was given that second chance, and my hope that each and every human being would give themselves that second chance. It doesn't start with the institution or the different companies. It starts with you believing in that you are worthy of the second chance, you forgiving yourself even for the mistake, for the trauma, for whatever it is that life has dealt you with, because it's inevitable that at some point in time life is going to happen. But in a grander sense, as Oprah Winfrey always says, Life is never happening to you. Life is always happening for you. Life is never happening to you. Life is constantly happening for you. Are you rising to meet your potential? Are you willing to try again? Are you willing to believe in yourself again? Despite the academic report, despite the health report, are you willing to hold on to faith, to hold on to hope, even when your circumstances say otherwise? And that really was a situation that called for me to hold on to hope. And as I held on to hope, as I put one foot in front of the other, reapplying, was reinstated. And truly, Khalid, that is the opportunity that has made the difference. That is the reason why I'm here today doing what I do.
You
That
mentioned some.
opportunity, that second chance opportunity has made the difference.
That was exactly my question. You mentioned a second chance, and I believe that I wanted to ask you, how important do you think is giving? So I was talking about second chances. How important do you think it is to give a second chance? And what are the possible outcomes that can result of giving someone a second chance?
Second chance is a key, Khalid. Second chance is a key. We all are deserving of a second chance. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the second chance opportunity that McMaster has given me. If I can be vulnerable, I have received more chances than a second chance. And I say this with all humility. And because of my life experiences, my life circumstances, I recognize that each and every human being is bound to make a mistake at some point, and life is going to happen at some point. It happens to all of us. Nobody is free of that. Nobody is safe from life happening to them. Then the question then becomes, how then do we position ourselves to receive that second chance? Are we willing to put in the work after you've been given that second chance, so that way you can rightfully claim your position? But realizing that, for me, I know for sure that each and every human being deserves a second chance. I operate in a nave people and give grace and kindness to a lot of people, love and compassion, because that's what life has given me. So for that which life has given me, I make it my own mantra to extend the same values to other people as well. But we're all deserving of second chances, all of us.
And you even talked about your experience with depression and mental health. I wanted to discuss, how important do you think it is for people, for institutions, for communities, and for universities, and for everyone in general, to fathom the seriousness of the subject and how it can possibly impact a person's life in many different ways? Do you think that we have reached to this epitome or peak of social awareness, or we still have a long way ahead of us?
I would say we still have a long way ahead of us. And I would say the first step is to acknowledge it. First step is to be aware that it's real and to acknowledge it. And then to set programs in place, especially in academic institutions, mental health workers, to provide that support system for people that find themselves in that type of situation. And to realize that each, we are bound to face a mental health challenge at some point. The reality is that not everybody has a healthy support system when it comes to family or friends. So we do need that space in those academic institutions where we can go there to offload our burdens, because everybody wants to feel heard and seen, right? Regardless of whatever it is that they're going through. So for me, I would say the number one, the most important step as well, especially as it pertains to academic institutions, is to have people, mental health workers, that are going to create that health system for students who lose their way, for students who find themselves in that kind of situation, to have somebody to talk to, and somebody who's not going to judge them, somebody who's not going to label them, and because it's actually something that is shameful to carry. Because I found shame in my situation, and that is something I was conditioned to believe because of my culture, where anybody who was found to be having a mental health challenge or situation, a lot of people would, nobody believed them. So for me, I think, it's very important to have systems in place that are to support people.
Exactly, because especially in your case, you were stepping foot, the first step into your fulfilling your dream, but then because you were going through such a hard time of depression, it is always accompanied by constant self-doubt and questioning. Will I be able to fulfill my purpose? Will I become a doctor? And that anxiety that just showers you during the process. So how were you able to persevere your way through all of this?
How was I able to persevere through all of this? Yes, I think it was through, um, I would say, being in touch with my voice, being in touch with that dream, that promise that I had made to my mother, and allowing that to be my guiding pillar. So even during the times when I stumbled, I quickly encouraged myself, inspired myself, and found reason to continue on, because I knew that I had to fulfill that promise I had made to my mother. So I would say it's very important for people to actually make promises to themselves. I think that is very important and key for people to make promises to themselves, and hoping that, as the journey is unfolding, they'll hold on to the promise even when all hell breaks loose, even when you're facing challenges, because the nature of life is that you are going to find yourself in circumstances that transcend your understanding. But if you're able to hold on, if you're able to find hope amidst those uncertain times, I know for sure you will make it through.
Speaking of having faith and trusting the process all along, I know that there's a phrase that's so dear to you. Tell us your story. You become what you believe. Tell me about this phrase and what does it mean to you on a personal level?
Oh, wow. Okay. So actually, how I came to be aware of this phrase, it was in 2011. I was 22 years of age at the time. I was just starting medical school, and I needed money to go to school. And so I had received $10,000 from a woman who was very gracious to me and deposited that huge seed into my path when I was starting medical school. But the reality was that $10,000 wasn't going to be enough for a full academic year. So I needed roughly about 25 to $30,000 for a full academic year. And around the time, I so happened to be talking to one of my friends who was based in the US. And she said to me, Oprah Winfrey is all about empowering the girl child through education. How about you go on her website and see if there's anything that is related to bursaries or a scholarship for empowering the girl child and women? So when I went on the website, the first thing that popped up was, tell us your story. You become what you believe. And truly, that was my first time encountering that phrase. You become what you believe. And up until the time in Mom and Khalid, I am of the time where I didn't know that I had a story. And I didn't know that people could actually create a lucrative, purposeful journey through the gift of speaking, through the gift of sharing their stories and so forth. And so it was my first time really encountering that phrase, tell us your story. You become what you believe. And those words resonated fully with me. Keep in mind, I didn't know I had a story. I knew I had made a promise to my mother, but I didn't know it was a story. There's a difference, huge difference. So, you know, the fact that I was on the journey, becoming a doctor, you know, to fulfill the promise I made to my mother, for me, I was not connecting that to it being a story. I just wanted to fulfill the promise I had made to my mother because I had made a pledge to her. So it had nothing to do with I'm writing a story or this story is going to be shared or people, I'm going to be inspiring people, empowering people. No, it really came from a pure place of wanting to fulfill the promise I had made to my mother. So now going on the Oprah Winfrey website and it says, tell us your story, you become what you believe. And those words resonated. Then I quickly typed in, at the age of 14 years old, I made a promise to my mother to become a medical doctor. And I'm just starting medical school now. Literally, that was the story that I shared with Oprah Winfrey. And what I needed was money to go to school. It wasn't so much of my story being highlighted or me being on the Oprah Winfrey website. I was still stuck in that mindset of becoming just a medical doctor. That's all that I wanted in that moment. And then they called back. The Oprah people called back. They called roughly about 3 times. And they were calling me on my cousin's phone number. And so my cousin didn't pick up. No, she did pick up the phone, but she thought it was a prank call. So she hung up on them about 2 times. And then the 3rd time they called again. And then that's when she was able to talk to them, and they, you know, told her that they were looking for Nothabo Ncube, which was me, and she was able to transfer over my number to them, and then they were able to directly contact me. And I went through roughly about 2 or 3 series of interviews with the Oprah Winfrey people for that once in a lifetime opportunity of being a part of Oprah Winfrey's live class on You Become What You Believe. So for me, those words have deep resonance, more so now than before. And being in that room, listening to the story of Oprah Winfrey, but also the story of other women who were invited on that day, hearing them sharing their stories about overcoming adversity, about overcoming their struggles, served as a reminder to me that in each and every one of us, there lies the power to transcend our circumstances and create from a true, authentic place who we're called to be. That's what that moment did for me. And now that I'm unfolding this path as a speaker, as a change maker, as a coach, as a mentor, and so forth, I know for sure you become what you believe. So I would say this to everybody who's tuning in now, you truly do become what you believe. The question then is, what do you believe to be true about yourself?
Without a doubt, you know, getting the chance to meet Oprah Winfrey herself, which happens to be an icon of giving hope and inspiration and advocating for the art of starting over. You know, even if you're at your lowest today, it does not mean that you will be or you have to be at your lowest tomorrow. You have that steering wheel to change your life, to become, to prosper, to change. And you know what further honed this mentality that you have grasped from that live class with Oprah Winfrey? I believe that the situation or with yourself when you were at that hair salon and you happened to say your story to that complete stranger, and then she was touched by your story and she offered $10,000. I'm sure that this ignited something deep within you. You know, I'm sure seeing people who are willing to go above and beyond to help those who are in need, to simply draw a smile in someone's face. What came through your mind at that?
You know, Khalid, at the time that it happened, I was in disbelief. The backstory is that it was the lady who was doing my hair, and I was carrying a Pathways to Education magazine, and they'd highlighted my story as one of their gifted kids. But in that short paragraph, they had also expressed that I had intentions of one day becoming a medical doctor. So she then asked me why I wasn't in medical school at the time, and then I shared with her that I didn't have enough money. And the fact that, and I want to make this clear, this woman wasn't rich by any means. This was a community hairdresser who probably had enough in her savings to give me, but she was not by any means rich or wealthy. She gave because she connected with my story and she felt led to deposit into my journey in that way. And I think when you encounter human beings like that, something shifts in you in terms of you start believing in that there are good people out there. There are good human beings out there. And for me, she restored my faith in humanity. But she also served as a reminder to me that God was with me through my journey, through my process of becoming, that I wasn't alone. That matter of fact, I was supported, that there was a hand above me that was conspiring with me and allowing me to unfold the path that I was on. So it's that lady restored my faith. She restored the promise in me. She restored the calling in me. And she served as a reminder that there's a universal energy I call God, and that force is real. That force knows what you need when you need it, and that force is supporting you. Whether or not you feel it, whether or not you see it, it's there and it's real, and you're not alone. You're supported, you're guided, you're being led. That's what that moment did for me.
Imagine if we had more people like them. How would our world be such a different place to live in? You know, people who want to give unconditionally, to be this uh, ray of light in someone's sky, this rainbow in someone's cloud. How would we live in such a different place, knowing that we are living in a world right now where our cohesion and solidarity as a global community is deeply jeopardized? So what if everyone had mentality to see the good in people and to initiate change in the lives of others? How would our world be such a different place?
I would say our world will be a different, our world will be a different place in the sense that, you know, we would be able to shine a light in other people's lives, which is what the world needs: more compassion, more love, more grace, more kindness. And for me, that's the world that I dream of. And with the compassion I've received, the grace and the love that I've received from strangers, from academic institutions, you name it, you know, I live in and through the space of that vein where I'm always trying to figure out ways in which I could be of support to other people. And that's why I would say I'm on this path to shine a lot of candles and to help other people to reconnect with the power in them, or rather to awaken to the power of God in them, the power of purpose in them. And my hope is that as I stand in my true authentic voice, I'm able to shine a light in another, but I'm also able to come and join forces with other change makers, so that way we can be able to shine a lot of candles.
Yes, exactly. And I was wondering, are you still in contact with that?
Oh, Khalid, you know, it's a sad story. She passed away in 2019 to cancer. And during her last moments in the hospital, she invited me to come and see her. And they didn't know the origin of her cancer till she passed away. But all they knew was that it was spreading all over her body internally. And she was, at the time that I went to see her, she had been given roughly about 2 months to live. She didn't make it up to 2 months. She passed away before that time. But I'm glad that I was able to go and see her on a daily basis till her passing away. And one of the things that I got to do during the time was that I got to have a conversation with her. And the conversation was so raw. And I asked her why she had helped me. And she said to me, there was an energy about you that I couldn't forget. I just knew there was something about you. And that's why I felt led to help you. But I think the other truth that I came to know during that time was the fact that when she helped me, she lived in community housing too. So she was just a community hairdresser who lived in community housing and had enough money saved up and was able to help me. So she was not wealthy. She had no money. She did not live in a luxurious home or anything like that. This was truly a human being, just like you and I, who felt compelled to help at that time. And I still am touched by that gesture, more so when I came to know that truth, that she actually lived in community housing at the time that she extended that grace and kindness to me. And I think it's a reminder to all of us, really, myself included, that there is so much more that we can do for the community if we are willing to stand together to help each other in whatever way we can. I'm not saying people should be giving people $10,000, but what I'm saying is in whatever way you can be of help to another soul, show up and do it.
And I believe that she is a true textbook definition of sticking to your roots. You know, us as human beings, we should always, if we choose to stick to our authenticity and our human instincts, that allows us to become advocates of hope, then definitely we would all end up living such a prosperous life if we just stick to that root of being human beings. And I'm sure that your words with her have accompanied you till this day, you know, because I myself wish that we had people like her, because she is a true hope maker. And whether it was for her or whether it was for education, you know, those hand of guidance in your life, you were finally able to graduate from medical school and you had that certificate in your hand. You're officially Dr. Nothabo, and then that came that sigh of relief. I made it. I'm sure it was more than just a title or a degree of study. You know, it was a promise fulfilled. It was a destination reached. It was a dream that turned into a concrete reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Most certainly. I always say that the journey to becoming a medical, or rather the journey to fulfilling, or rather the journey to fulfilling the promise I made to my mother was more than just a journey of becoming a medical doctor, so to speak. It is the journey that set me on a spiritual path that I didn't imagine possible for myself, that allowed me to come to encounter God in a deeper way and in a different way. And matter of fact, that's what truly connected me to my higher calling and purpose of the work that I'm doing now, as when it comes to, you know, giving people hope, inspiring humanity, empowering people, and raising consciousness at such a time. So my path to becoming a medical doctor, it feels as though it was a divine plot twist meant to help me to awaken to the deepest parts of who I am, so that way God, the universe, could use me as a messenger of hope, so that way God, the universe, could use me as a mouthpiece for such a time.
And when did you realize? When did you realize that your purpose in life extends beyond this point? Yes, being part of the medical field is one of the most humane jobs out there, but you, Nothabo, as an individual, as a person, you knew that your purpose is yet to be. You did not reach to that final destination yet. So did you stay true to yourself and to those gut feelings you had, or did you try to underestimate them?
Or did I try to? Sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Did you try to underestimate those feelings you had that you want to pursue something else,
Okay, right.
or yourself?
Khalid, it wasn't just one moment that brought me to that level of awareness. It was a cumulative, a chain reaction of a lot of different destiny moments on my path. Um, the first one that I can remember, from on top of my head right now, right this moment, is the one when I was 14, when I made a promise to my mother. I feel that that was also a moment of me remembering who I am. But the second one was when I was just starting in university, when I lost my way and I got reinstated. And then the next one was that lady giving me $10,000. And then the other one was then me meeting Oprah Winfrey. And the other one was me receiving the TEDx opportunity. So it's been a chain reaction of divine destiny moments that have led me to this place where I'm able to do the work that I do. So to say that it was one moment, I would be lying. It's been a collective of moments that I look back on. I'm able to connect the dots and I see that common thread that has always been in my life, leading me to this place where I'm able to do the work that I'm doing, heart-centered work that I do. So it was never just one moment. It was um, accumulative of a lot of moments, a chain reaction of moments that have led me here. And it was, I would say it has always been there. The gift has always been there in me, but it was waiting on me to awaken to it and to surrender to it and to allow it to unfold. Because it's one thing to know or to be aware of who you are, but it's another to actually be true to it, to surrender to it, and to actually do it. A lot of time fear creeps in. Society tells us we're not good enough, and society tells us that we don't fit into that mold. And so I think it's very much it's important that we are also willing to rise to meet that destiny that is within us, and to believe it, to own it, and to embody it. So that way, and as we do that, we inspire others to do the same.
Speaking of this awakening moment in your life that you noticed that you wanted to be this voice for the voiceless and to use yourself as a catalyst of change in this world, um, were you afraid to confront those intentions with your father? Excuse my curiosity, just because your journey of becoming was so inundated with obstacles already, from losing your mother at such a tender age, then
Yeah.
emigrating to Canada, and facing financial burdens to continue your medical journey, going through depression, and then now after you have finally became a doctor, you want to do something else. So were you afraid to say this to your father?
Yes, I was, considering that I had gone through so many different challenges up until that moment of me becoming a medical doctor. But I think there's also that unsaid expectation from family, especially when you're coming from that kind of background where everybody's hoping that you're going to be the one who's going to become the breakthrough of the family. And often becoming the breakthrough of the family means you're showing up and practicing medicine, right? Because it's more lucrative and you get more money. So you can now imagine, here's a medical doctor, now she's taking a different path. I think I was afraid, but my dad received it with grace, with understanding, and allowed me to tap into it. He might not have fully understood it, but he allowed me to be who I am, and he created that room and space for me to just unfold the path, even though he didn't know where it was leading me. There's one moment that I remember vividly. It was his first time experiencing me on stage, sharing my story. It was 2018 in March. And, that was his first time ever seeing me on stage, sharing my story. And my dad was in the audience, and I saw him tearing up. I feel that he knew that I had the ability to do it, but I think what truly touched him was how other people in the audience were connecting with my voice, how other people in the audience were responding to the energy of my calling. So people in the audience were tearing up, and he started crying as well. And for me, I know for sure again that it was tears of joy. I believe ever since that moment, he has never questioned it. It kind of gave him a bit of ease and peace and joy, knowing that what I was doing was being seen, it was being heard, it was being received. And that too, as a man, he responded to it as well. So that's a moment that I'll never forget, even as I'm continue on the path, even when I face a lot of different challenges, because I know that moment meant so much to him. And it meant so much to me as well to see my dad experiencing me in the space of my calling and purpose. And it's a moment that, you know, I think it's the best moment for me. Like ever since I started speaking and sharing my voice and truth, that for me is my best moment ever. Just seeing my dad in the audience and tearing up and coming to that place of receiving me as I am.
Talking about understanding parents and especially your father, who was proud of the daughter that he raised, no matter what path he wanted to pursue, he would be as proud as he would be if you were a doctor, if you were a motivational speaker, if you were a millennial coach, because at the end of the day, that is your calling in life, that is your
Mm-hmm.
purpose. So I wanted to ask you if you would have to send a message to those parents who reinforce their ideas and interfere with their children's decisions, especially those related to futuristic endeavors. What would you have to say to them?
Right. The advice that I would give most parents is that um, be conscious, be present with the kids, pay attention to their gifts, their talents. Kids already know who they are, and they're constantly telling you who they are through you just monitoring them and observing what they are drawn to, right? I've always been a talker, Khalid, ever since I was young. So the fact that I'm a speaker now is not a surprise to my family, to those people that were observing me ever since I was young. So that is true for each and every kid. Every kid already knows who they are. So it is the parent's duty to observe what the child is drawn to, what the child is passionate about. And you are here not to dictate the path a child should take, but to allow them to be who they are, for you to affirm them in the path that they feel is calling them. And once you're able, like I always give an example of Beyonce. Beyonce started singing when she was 4 years old. She was singing in her mother's saloon in their backyard. So what we're seeing now is a talent that has been being molded ever since she was a young girl. But she is blessed because she had conscious parents. She had parents who were aware, who were paying attention to who she was. Not necessarily parents who wanted her to fit into the mold of what they wanted her to be. There's a huge difference. So I think one thing that I would say to parents is that observe who your kids are, pay attention to their gifts. And as you come to that level of knowing who your kids are, create a safe space, a healthy space for them to tap into those gifts and support them on their journey. That's what I would say. Give them that room and space for them to explore their individuality. Stop dictating, allow them, support them, be there, be a guide. And of course, not every parent can sometimes afford um to unfold a certain path, especially like people who are in the creative industry, like people like Beyonce. But there are certain resources and tools that you can try and align your child with, so that way they can maximize on those opportunities and hopefully become something, you know.
I couldn't agree more, because and I wish that every single parent today would give their child that creative circle and space to explore their interests, their passions, their purpose in life, to get to know themselves, their characteristics, their strengths and weaknesses, because we all have this purpose in life that we have to fulfill, and we know ourselves best. I know myself best, you know yourself best, and everyone else is the same. So truly, parents should cut this umbilical cord. Allow your child to fly and make mistakes, because once they come back, they're going to come back stronger than ever. And speaking of purpose, Dr. Nothabo, what's your purpose today?
Wow. My purpose today is to stand in the truth of who I am, in my true authentic voice, in my true light, in my wisdom, in all that which I am, God in me, and allow that light to shine for the world to see, with the intention of helping other people see a piece of themselves in me, so that way they can in turn live purpose-driven lives. I believe that it is through the power of storytelling that other people are able to see a piece of themselves in an individual. So if I can stand in the truth of that and give and allow other people to see me, the broken parts of me, the whole parts of me, I believe another human being will be inspired in the process. It is through the power of being vulnerable that other people are able to see us, that other people are also able to draw strength that lies within us.
On this note, I'm sure that people are asking, what is your bingo idea? Meaning, what's your biggest goal right now? Something that if you have successfully fulfilled, you would be confident to say that you have achieved your ever growing purpose. Do you even
Wow.
have that bingo idea?
Right, I do. I would say it's a lot of things. I think for number one, what I've been doing in the past has been centered on sharing my voice and my story, right, with the goal of empowering other people. I think the next chapter of my journey is also creating a safe space, a platform where other people can share their stories and their truth as well. But also for me to evolve to a space where I'm not only able to empower people through the gift of my voice and my story, but to economically empower people as well, so that way they can create something meaningful of their lives. So to be the bridge of hope, to fight for marginalized communities, to inspire, to give people hope, to raise the vibration of the earth. I would say that is the next goal for me.
And you know what, Dr. Nthabo, with this ideology in life that you have, with your mentality, with you radiating this optimistic aura wherever you go and in whatever you do, I am sure that you will be able to fulfill this noble cause of yours, because people like you who are natural hope makers, they end up accomplishing this purpose in life. And it's the most euphoric feeling that you have accomplished your purpose, the reason for your existence, and you utilize this existence of yours into helping others. And as much as this conversation is such a fruitful one, and I have gained personally from every word you have said during this conversation, I wanted to wrap up with one question. So, if your mother was listening to us today, which I'm sure she is, what would you have to say to her? Because I'm sure she's more than proud of the person you have become.
I would say that I'll first extend gratitude. I'll say thank you, Mama, for guiding me, for protecting me, for being with me every step of the road as my guiding angel. I wouldn't be the woman I am if it wasn't for you. The woman that I am now today is as a result of everything that she deposited into me within the first 14 years of my life. And everything that came after is also because of her, because she was guiding me from, up there in the heaven with the stars and so forth. So I attribute everything that I am to her, and I'm beyond grateful for the pivotal role that she has played in my journey from ever since I was born up until now. And I know that there's still so much work to be done, but I would say, please continue guiding me. Please continue protecting me. Please continue showing me the way, the right way. And during the times when I stumble, encourage me, hold me up, center me, so that way I can ultimately reach my full potential.
Absolutely amazing. Dr. Nothabo, I would love to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being who you are, for continuing to inspire, for continuing to initiate change in the lives of those children who are waiting for that hand of guidance, because you are taking this journey of yourself, this journey of becoming, this journey of over. I was saying that I am more than it was more than honored and proud to get the chance to chat with someone like you, and thank you for being my first hope maker.
Yeah, and thank you for having me, Khalid. I believe that you're onto something powerful and great, something that is going to truly change and impact people's lives. Stay on the path. Stay on the path.
Thank you so much. Thank you.